Good afternoon from Bali, everyone. It's Anifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today is Mother's Day in North America, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and also to all the fathers or men who are taking on the role of mothers or feminine energy. And as I had posted earlier today on my Facebook and LinkedIn, I want us to remember that all of us contain both feminine and masculine energies. If anyone knows something about Chinese medicine, you'll understand the terms yin and yang represent female and male energies, and all of us have all of it. And today's a wonderful day to think about that feminine energy, which is nurturing. Yet, I thought I'd bring light to something that is very important in terms of alchemy and in recognizing the emotional effects that are happening all around the world. And oftentimes we're eager to point fingers at places as this is the reason that we're all so not so pleased in life. And I thought we would focus on something related to parental energy today. So I thought I'd start with this question, this quotation. I actually don't have a quote for it, but I thought it was very fitting. It says, "A lot of parents were their children's first bully." A lot of parents were their children's first bully. And I certainly have seen this in so many clients. I certainly have understood this experience too. And it's so important that this is something that we don't talk about too much. And again, unless we understand this from an individual perspective, that an individual who has been bullied by a parent in any way, and remember, bullying is not only physical abuse. I'd say only because physical abuse can pass. It's the emotional effects that are remembered by the body, the mind, the soul. And this is also a place of alchemy, because when the soul is remembering this, we have come into these lives, as far as this mind is concerned, with an awareness of some of the things that we'd like to work on, how to evolve. And this is so important, that when children have gone through something not easy, in grief recovery, those of you who have worked with me with grief recovery know that there's this whole idea of working through things that might have been from childhood, even though most of the people that I have worked with are adults. And yet, things right from childhood are often still in a person's mind. And adults usually think, oh, that was so long ago, I don't need to worry about that now. I'm not holding a grudge about that. Yeah, I've forgiven. And usually the forgiveness has come after a parent has died. And some children are raised without actual genetically related parents, so are raised by other parents. And so many have gone through different types of unease. So again, physical abuse is one, mental, emotional effects. We hear about the word trauma quite a bit these days, and many are starting to understand this. And these trauma wounds do follow in a person's life. So people will be attracted to people that might be hitting the same bruises, nerves, memories that a person is carrying. And unless we actually bring attention to these and work through them and acknowledge them, we don't heal. And then when we don't heal individually, we don't heal as a family, we don't heal as a community, and we don't heal as a world. So today I would love for you to focus on this idea that these emotional effects that happen are definitely contributing strongly to the mental health concerns that so many are feeling in the world today. So today I thought I'd share this next quotation. It says, "Truly, it is in darkness that one finds the light. So when we are in sorrow, then this light is nearest to all of us, to all to us." Let me read that properly for you. Truly, it is in darkness that one finds the light. So when we are in sorrow, then this light is nearest of all to us. When we're in darkness, the darkness of sorrow, so grief can be seen as a darkness, anger is also a darkness. You can imagine that an angry parent or coworker or boss can then put a person into a space of darkness, which darkness is often related to these mental health concerns, things like depression and anxiety that we hear a lot about. And grief is something, again, that not too many people speak about, but we all have experienced some. And this idea of when it's super dark, it's that light is closest to us. So it's that extreme of sorrow that is the portal of opening into light and this awareness, this awakening that we talk about, or some have. You might know this word, and awakening is this idea of moving into darkness, of ignorance. If we think about denial is a type of ignorance, that no, nothing really has happened in my life. And a lot of people will say that, and unless they actually are sitting and focusing on what has happened, or what have they done, or have others done to them, it's much easier to think about what others have done to us, but then we carry that darkness too. So when we're carrying that darkness, and unless we recognize that darkness is within us and bring light to it, that's the light of awareness, that's attention, it's compassion, it's love, it's consideration, it's understanding. So all of that is light energy. And oftentimes it's through the least easy times in our lives that we are allowed an opportunity, if we allow ourselves the opportunity to see this light. Most people in spaces of darkness either like to avoid it, to look away from it, that, oh, I'll find the light somewhere, and we will find the light in someone else, something else. So, okay, this parent is not so easy. That's the dark parent. This parent is very easy. So I'm so happy with this parent. Yet I don't deal with the darkness that I am carrying also. So now we know that many times we see that in psychology, sometimes in general conversations, we will talk about, oh, mothers will be like their future daughters will be like their mothers. Their daughters will be like their mothers. And then sons will be like their fathers. And then we almost give that okay. And really, each soul is on its own individual journey. We have asked somehow, in some way, at some level, I believe, for the exact families that we have. And when we're confronted with some darkness, we have an ability to go within and first nurture ourselves to see, wow, what has happened here and what can I learn from this experience, rather than falling into our own darkness of ignorance, of I don't see it, denial, I don't remember it, and not acknowledgement of what actually is here. So I came across this quotation. It says, well, here, I'll read it to you. It says, Tara Bennett Goldman uses the metaphor of alchemy, remember the topic of this series, to symbolize the spiritual and emotional transformation that's possible when we embrace our pain with caring concern. When we give ourselves compassion, the tight knot of negative self-judgment starts to dissolve, replaced by a feeling of peaceful, connected acceptance, a sparkling diamond that emerges out of the coal. And this is alchemy. You would think that, oh, so I'm just supposed to give myself self-love? Yes. Yeah, most people don't even know what that is or how they would practice that. And they, again, even when people know these words, will probably just start saying, okay, this is how I love myself. I take myself to a spa treatment once a week, or I go get a massage regularly. I see this practitioner, that practitioner. I call my family, whichever it is. And that seems to be the cover that, yeah, I'm dealing with things. I'm giving myself love. And I'm giving others love too. Yet I've never healed the things that have really been wounded within myself. And most people will say that that's possible, but no, it's obviously healed because of time, and time does not heal. So shadow energy, this not so easy energy, comes up at the right opportunities when we are ready to receive some possible learning. And oftentimes if people have a memory that is brought up by thought, it's repeated experience of that was so painful, that was so not nice, and thank goodness I'm not like that. It's not really working on, am I healed from this? And of course this is the work I do, and I encourage that we all do this because there's such a benefit for ourselves, again, our families, our communities, our workplaces, our personal lives, and the world. And this again also follows this whole idea that I'd really like to remind us about. These darker energies, one could also, or shadow energies, one could also think of it as the unconscious, but it's also the space of the ego. And it says here, this is by Mahatma Gandhi, it says, when the ego dies, the soul awakes. When the ego dies, the soul awakes. So we're talking about awakening. And this idea of when the ego dies. Now, how does the ego die? We can't let go of the ego until we actually acknowledge that it's there, actually comfort the fact of sometimes it's protected us in times that we would not have been able to handle, seeing so much darkness within ourselves. This is how much pain I am carrying, and this pain is a shadow which then filters into every connection that we make. And so this idea, I'd really love for all of us to reflect on this, because unless we're understanding these terms, these ideas, this effect and long-term effect that these traumas can have, I'll say. And again, even trauma is a very strong word. I'm very careful about language. Unease, all of these really significant uneasy spaces, if we don't acknowledge them. And I've worked with grief recovery with different people, and so many people will focus on one, and this is the whole intention, to focus on one person, and then having the tools to work on anything, any area of grief. And yet most people say, I'll do that sometime. I'm so glad I did this one. This was the most important one. I'm so glad I'll do that one at some point, and they don't. And I know that it's not that I'm trying to sell my services, but if it does, that's great too, when I move back to Canada. But I will say for now, I really want to encourage you to know that those shadows that have been experienced from different people, different experiences, do need the same attention. And it doesn't mean you need every single experience you've had in your life, but this whole idea, until it becomes a habit of I know how to work through each sorrow, each grief, each anxiety, each concern, and to be able to look at my own experience compassionately as well as others compassionately. This is the work of grief recovery, but it's also the work of our own personal transformation. And transformation and transmutation, remember, transmutation is the other word that I'm using in this series for alchemy. And it says here, in this wonderful quotation says, transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master. Transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master. This transmutation requires that we acknowledge that this is here, it's within us, it's within others, and can I give this love and compassion and allow a space of understanding, which I have to tell you does not really come from the mind. It really comes from a willingness to just look carefully, to observe, to have an attention towards the things that we sometimes do not want to look at. Today, I wish you a fabulous Mother's Day, and I hope you know that I'm aware that not all mothers are very kind, and that illusion that we've got that mothers are so kind, all of our mothers that are very kind have also had times that have not been so kind to their children, sometimes to others, sometimes to themselves. And this is that whole yin-yang energy. This is the light and the dark, the shadow and the light, whichever way you want to look at it. And when we see that that's what's come through us, many people will say, well, that's just how life is. Well, guess what? Life can have this wonderful experience of alchemy and transmutation. I wish that for all of us. I hope that this video gives you something to reflect on. I wish you a fabulous day ahead or night, and I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life. Have a good day or night, everyone.